My parents canceled my 18th birthday to please my entitled sister, so I moved out with Grandpa, who then cut them off financially for good. Hello, I recently turned 18 a few days ago, but sadly my bratty elder sister insisted on my party being cancelled at the last minute, hence my parents cancelled it. I was very glad she wasn't even meant to be here for the celebration. But it's just my luck that strong Midwest storms caused all of the planes to be cancelled on the day she was scheduled to depart. 3 days before my birthday, she was meant to go to NYC with a group of pals, but for now they have had to postpone the trip. She has been rather offended over it, hence my parents have been walking on eggshells around her since they truly want to avoid aggravating her. She is the golden child of our family, hence they wouldn't dare, really. So much so, that she insisted my birthday be cancelled early on as, in her words, if she doesn't get to have fun, neither will I. Naturally, my parents sent the message to every single individual who had been invited without second thought. Much later in the evening, while I was eagerly waiting for all the visitors to arrive, but none were showing up, I discovered. When I asked my parents at last why none had shown up even by 7 p.m., they informed me they had called off the celebration without even asking me. They claimed my sister was somewhat disturbed and felt it would be inappropriate to throw a party while she was in this state. At that point, I lost all control and began yelling at my folks. It seemed simply to be unfair. My sister had always received different treatment from my parents, who expected me to sacrifice all my life and meet her every demand more than my own. And I always had as well. This was, however, going much too far. My sister was complaining about a trip that was cancelled for legitimate reasons outside of anyone's control, hence my parents had promised to plan my 18th birthday party, invited all of my friends and family so we could have a large birthday celebration, and now they had cancelled it without even notifying me. To exacerbate things, my parents had subtly informed every visitor that I had suddenly gotten ill, so I called off the party. Declaring I had a migraine and that using my phone was the last thing I needed, they asked that no one text me about it. Nobody texted me, hence I had no idea what was going on until the very last minute. I started fighting with my parents right away when they informed me what had transpired. Extremely offended as it wasn't my place to back down, I was yelling at them. Even then, their main worries were my being too noisy since they worried my sister would wake up from her nap. I kept yelling till my sister arrived downstairs, not giving a damn about that. Starting to defend our parents, she said they had done nothing illegal. She said that, as it would be cruel, she was the one who objected to everyone celebrating or partying while she was so distraught. She even said that I was the most entitled and spoiled person if I couldn't see that. Her utter arrogance following what she had done infuriated me to the point of me mindlessly starting to curse her. Things became physical as I grabbed her hair and tried to shake her. Our parents had to split us apart, and in the turmoil we missed the doorbell ringing. My parents opened the door to discover my grandfather waiting there after we at last stopped battling. Everyone in the family, including my parents, regards my paternal grandfather as a truly formidable force. Not great news for them was having him at the door. He began questioning why there was so much yelling and cursing as soon as he walked inside. Probably since I had been the loudest, he turned to me for responses. Usually, since it seemed petty, I wouldn't share with people the way my parents treated me, but I told my grandpa everything since this time I had nothing to lose. I told them I was unhappy with my parents and sister and that hiding the truth would not help them treat me any better, hence I saw no use in doing so anymore. It was time to stand up and I did. I also told him that I had dealt with my sister every day for the past 18 years, hence the bias toward her was not a one-time occurrence. But this episode was the last straw. I could not stand it anymore. My grandfather's expression was clearly shocked as soon as I spoke. He erupted at my father within seconds and started chastising him. It was then that I learned a lot of hitherto unknown facts. For the previous few years, my grandpa revealed he had been giving money to my parents every month since they had been trying to keep their business open and maintain the family. Basically, it was my grandfather who had been helping us all along, even covering the cost of the party my parents were ready to claim credit for. My grandfather chastised my parents for disappointing him with such treatment of me. From my conduct, he added, it was obvious that their devotion for my sister traumatized me. While my sister, being as stupid as ever, tried to argue with him, my parents silently let him talk. She said that her primary reason for requesting a cancellation of the party was her devastation at having her trip to New York, which she had been looking forward to for months, canceled indefinitely. She said it was merciless of me to throw a celebration while she was in pain. But my grandfather did not have time for her lies. She was the perfect example of entitlement, he reminded her, canceling my 18th birthday celebration only to suit her emotions. He told her the world did not revolve around her, and I believe it must have news value for her. My sister's argument with my grandfather infuriated him even more, and finally he informed my parents he would no longer be helping them. They were on their own now. Then he advised me to get ready and accompany him should I wish to move away, as obviously my parents only gave my sister top priority. The only thing my parents were offended about, even when my grandfather said this, was losing his financial backing. I was about to accept his offer, but they didn't seem to care that he volunteered to let me live with him. This merely confirmed what my grandfather said. They gave no damn about me. I thus wasted not a moment. While my parents tried to haggle and fight with my grandpa to keep his support, I walked upstairs. I hurriedly packed my belongings, then headed downstairs with my grandfather, who barely turned around one final time. He apologized to me for everything I had gone through as we were driving to his house. He remarked he ought to have done this long ago. Though I'm not sure exactly what that implies, I'm just rather happy to be living with him right now. My parents are the only ones dissatisfied with this arrangement, clearly. They have been assiduously attempting to reach me. Although I have not blocked them yet, I have not been answering their calls or messages either. Still, I have been reading their books. My parents continue to text me, apologize, and claim they lacked thoughtfulness. Since my sister was more delicate, and her emotions were more fragile, they acknowledge they always put her first. They now regret it as they never understood they were ignoring me in doing this. They worked very hard to give the impression that they were ignoring me simply because they felt I was strong enough to manage it. To be honest though, my sister is practically 5 years older than I am. And if anything, she ought to have been the one capable of sharing with our parents. I bought no single word from what my parents said. I understood they were just acting this way since Grandpa wanted me to return and enable him to keep supporting them. From them, all I wanted was one sincere apologies, yet it never came. It really began to irritate me. So this morning I told my father to stop texting me. I replied I didn't need their false apologies. I knew they were merely doing this to maintain Grandpa's support. I had finished working with them. When they canceled my birthday celebration without even asking me, they had told me just where their priorities lay. That was the straw shattering the camel's back. Today I was never returning. My dad responded instead of apologizing, saying he and my mother had mistreated me, but he was ready to set things right and do anything necessary. I seized the chance to explain to them that I would only agree to come back and discuss helping them if, and only if, my sister would no longer be living with us when I returned. They made a mistake by stating they were willing to do anything. She is 23 and has been working for the past 2 years. By now she should have accumulated enough money to move out. I thus don't even consider myself to be being so unfair, but my parents see me to be callous and silly. Now Ada for informing my parents that should my sister move out I will only be back in with them. You know, that kind of thing. My parents had always given her first attention. These little items added up even if they were trivial. Sadly, I never considered it sufficient enough to discuss with my relatives. Even if I had, I doubt it would have been justification for anybody wishing to have me taken away or offered to move out from. I simply remained quiet about it since else it would have infuriated my parents even more. Regarding my grandfather, I mentioned he is a force to be reckoned with since practically every member of the family loves and respects him. He had won numerous challenging cases and was among the greatest attorneys back in his day. Not to mention quite rich, he leads a very disciplined life and is quite morally pure. Clearly then, everyone in the family looks up to him. I could have told him how my parents were treating me if I had wanted to, but up until last year he was rather busy seeing my grandmother, who was nearing death. He was busy, and I wanted not to disturb him with my little grievances while he was already handling so much. He was grieving when my grandma went away, so I didn't believe it was worth mentioning. I am quite appreciative now that he is willing to assist me. Our connection has always been good, hence it is not shocking that he has volunteered to let me live with him until I start college. He has even informed me he will cover all of my college costs until I'm working. First update. Hello, hence I have decided to keep to the condition I proposed for my parents. Obviously, even if they kick my sister out, I have no intention of returning to live with them. I merely want to find out whether they really do it. That will reveal whether they really want me back or whether they believe my sister is more valuable than the financial support of my grandfather. I haven't told him anything about this, but to be fair, I recently learned of other things he had been hiding from me. I therefore believe it to be fair enough. I'm talking about the fact that my grandpa knew my parents didn't truly want me all along, but he had never taken anything about it. Actually, even if my sister lacked any traits that would justify her partial behavior, I never even knew exactly why my parents favored her. My grandfather recently told me that originally, my parents had just intended for one child. 5 years following my sister's birth though, my mother became pregnant with me. Although they intended to end the pregnancy, my dad made a mistake by alerting the parents of my mother about it. My mother's grandparents insisted that it would be inappropriate to turn away that gift should my parents be blessed with another child. They thus persuaded my parents to maintain the pregnancy. Sadly, while my mother was 8 months pregnant, my maternal grandparents were in a horrible vehicle accident. Both died from their wounds following several weeks of struggling for their lives. My mom was clearly heartbroken. During her pregnancy, she experienced a rather mental break whereby she began accusing me of bringing ill luck into her life. She spent a few weeks institutionalized, and when she returned she was quite improved. Still, my parents secretly felt bad about letting the pregnancy get this far. After I was born, they had every intention of having me adopted. But this time my paternal grandparents intervened. They forbade my parents from putting me up for adoption and told them they were crazy. Though they were reluctant, my parents raised me. When I challenged my grandfather about the comment he made when he took me back home, he told me all of this. Now I see what he meant when he said he ought to have done this long ago. I agree, he ought absolutely to have. In any case, I know I will never go back to my parents since I now know the truth about the reason they treated me differently. My present treatment of them is absolutely justified. For years, they punished me for something not under my control. At least I'm better than them since I'm punishing them for truly their fault. Though I still find my grandpa frustrating for not being honest sooner, I know these things are difficult to discuss, especially to a young child. Right now, he is the only person I can rely on. Thus I try not to get too enraged with him. But I felt bad about it when I spotted my sister waiting outside today following school. I so requested one of my male buddies to accompany me home. Being a football player, he is rather on the larger side, and I knew that if my sister did anything, he would be there to assist. We have been friends for a really long time, and I totally trust him. He is know-all, even specifics about my family. He agreed to stroll me back home. It was really starting to creep me out as my sister trailed silently. Halfway home I turned around to challenge her on what she was trying to do. She said she wouldn't want to chat in front of a stranger, but I told her I hardly wanted to chat with her at all. She then began telling me that my behavior has been the reason our parents have been really anxious and unhappy. She said yesterday that unless she was forced out of the house, our parents had at last warned her that I wouldn't come back home or even speak to my grandfather about helping them again. She thought I was being somewhat unjust, thus she came here to challenge me about it. I told her, if I can't be happy, neither can you, thinking it ludicrous of her to believe I would dignify this with a conversation. She used exactly the same reasoning to have my party called off, thus I reasoned it should also apply to her. She started yelling at me, calling me a vile human being, when I turned around to head home. I merely kept walking with my friend and turned her off. I never bothered to reply or look around. I suppose turning her off was what truly infuriated her, as shortly afterward, she attacked me and I was on the ground. I could feel her weight on my back as well as my own from my rucksack. Fortunately, my friend physically had my back since I sensed her being hauled off me in seconds. My companion was supporting her with one arm, hardly breaking a sweat as I at last got back on my feet and dusted myself. Knowing my sister's aggressive nature, I suppose I was right to have him walk me home. Her even belief she could attack me and get away with it infuriated me. I thus approached her, gave her a strong slap, and warned her that I would call the cops should she attempt anything humorous once more. I knew our beloved parents would not value any more drama, with all the turmoil she had already caused. She still had the arrogance to try and fight with me, but following that slap my friend and I turned away and she stopped following me. I told Grandpa all about it when I returned home. He was about to contact the police, but I told him it was not worth it, she was just a loser, and I knew she had learned her lesson. Besides, she was definitely already in a dangerous posture with our parents. When I eventually told my grandpa about the state I had created for my parents, I expected he would be offended, but instead he laughed alongside me. He felt it was clever and believed my parents deserved to be let run wild. That was that then. Though I'm a little hurt from being thrown to the ground, I feel good knowing I finally gave my sister some sense. She really deserved it, and it was a long time coming. I now simply hope my sister and parents leave me alone after learning this. Update 3. Hey, I moved out practically a month ago. I will only be staying with my grandpa for a few more months as September marks my beginning of college. Officially, school has ended right now. I graduated from high school a few days ago. The football player friend I described in my last report was my prom date. Indeed, several of you folks called it, and I wanted to share this joyful little nugget before delving into what transpired with my sister and parents. 2 days following my confrontation with my sister, I got a note from my parents. They claimed to have figured out their desired line of action. As I had always been envious and spiteful, they chose to let my sister stay with them since, in their eyes, I was obviously not the kind of person they wanted around her. My mother's older brother had chosen to be a partner and investor in the company, hence they no longer needed financial support and no longer wanted me around. They acknowledged the only reason they wanted me back was because they needed money help from my grandfather. Although I had known their actual motivations from the start, this disclosure had little effect on me. I'm really sure they believed this would damage my emotions. I neglected even responding to the message. They wrote me another message a few hours later, stating they were going to block me immediately because I was a disgusting human being, just like my sister had claimed. I guess this reality got under their skin. They tagged me as violent and unappreciative in addition to calling me terrible and merciless. Obviously violent since I had smacked my sister the other day, and it was not surprising that they disregarded the truth that she had initially attacked and pushed me to the ground. Better still, my sister must not have told them, hence they most likely did not know. They also branded me unappreciative since, despite all they had done for me, I still had the audacity to act as though they were negligent parents. They discussed how they had raised me, spent money on food, sent me to school, and clothed me. When parents bring up things like that while in a difficult situation, I truly find it perplexing. It doesn't make them unique. I consider it to be rather the minimum they could do for their children. But I suppose my parents believe the basic minimum is more than enough, hence I should treat them like my saviors for doing it. In any case, I wanted to reply but opted against it since it would waste time. I therefore blocked them first, and I was done before they could block me. My grandpa and I are living really nicely, and thus far most of the colleges I applied to have welcomed me. As promised, my grandpa will pay all of my costs. I am still waiting to hear from some of the better ones. We are still getting used to living together, and I do find myself feeling enraged at him sometimes for not removing me from my parents earlier. I am aware, though, that he had personal limitations and regrets not being able to support me when most needed. These days, we are working on it together. I never have to cope with my parents on my own evermore. Hopefully, they won't contact me either going forward. Update 4. Hi. I last updated 1 full year ago. I much appreciate the wonderful remarks and helpful DMs. Right now I am doing fantastic. My entire family, from what I know, has cut off my sister and dad. Although my mom's side of the family is still in contact with them, nobody from my dad's side speaks to them anymore because of my grandpa. Since I never discussed it, most people had no idea how I was being handled. However, as my grandfather began to tell others he was not in contact with my parents, they discovered the reason we experienced that fallout, and my parents were ultimately shunned. It's karma, I suppose. I don't think anyone else could have caused this state of affairs except themselves. Although I don't know what my sister has been up to, I heard from a few people that she moved out and is now living alone last week. To be honest, that news motivated me to update all of you here. I am still going strong, as is my boyfriend. We get together on the weekends since I head home every weekend. My college is really near. I truly feel like a brand new person even though I have made many acquaintances here. Now closer than ever, my grandfather and I have also worked on our relationship. I doubt anything can ever change. He is my favorite person on earth. Though in the past he has made blunders, nevertheless, nobody else has. We have moved on from everything and I have forgiven him. Indeed, right now I am really content. I appreciate you folks.